Year 2187. A single distress signal. Repeating. Over and over. From a shuttle that should have had 10 people aboard. When Mission Control finally decoded the voice, only one person was speaking. And what she said changed everything we thought we knew about the universe. 11 months earlier, humanity's greatest mission launched from the Lunar Gateway Station. The ISV Helios, a deep space interstellar vessel the size of a stadium, carried 30 researchers, engineers, and the most advanced AI system ever built. Their destination, Proxima Centauri b. 4 light-years away. The first world beyond our own sun. Among the Helios crew was a 10-person science shuttle team called ours. Commander Elena Voss, a woman who survived a Mars dust storm alone for 6 days. Dr. Rajan Mehta, astrophysicist and Elena's closest friend. And KAIA, their AI crew assistant, whose voice sounded disturbingly like a person who genuinely cared. 30 days into the voyage, Elena received a personal transmission from Earth. It was her daughter, Maya, holding a handmade birthday card. The signal took 12 minutes to arrive. Elena recorded a reply, knowing Maya would not hear it for another 12. Distance, in space, does not just separate bodies. It separates moments. The Helios crossed the orbit of Jupiter. Outside the reinforced observation glass, stars stopped being points of light and became something else entirely. Something that made even experienced astronauts go quiet. Space this deep did not feel empty. It felt full of something that was simply waiting. Mission Day 97. The Helios approached the outer edge of the main asteroid belt at 0.04 light speed. Navigation AI plotted 17,000 microcorrections per second. The belt looked like a slow-motion explosion frozen in time. Beautiful from a distance. Lethal up close. KAIA announced that passage would take approximately 62 hours. On the 41st hour of belt crossing, the ship's LiDAR array detected something unexpected. One asteroid, catalogued as 2187 VX4, was moving. Not drifting. Not tumbling on its axis the way rocks do after ancient collisions. Moving. With direction. With what sensor analysis described, in the driest possible language, as apparent intentionality. Dr. Mehta pulled up the trajectory data and went completely silent for 4 minutes. Then he said 6 words: "This is not physically possible." The rock, approximately 1.4 kilometers in diameter, was decelerating against the gravitational flow. No propulsion signature. No outgassing. No collision force acting on it. Nothing was pushing it. Nothing should have been able to. Captain Harlow of the Helios escalated immediately to Mission Control. Given the 14-minute signal delay, the response came 28 minutes later. The message was simple: deploy shuttle Rs for close observation. Gather optical, spectral, and gravitational data within safe approach distance. Do not make contact. Return within 6 hours. Elena studied the trajectory feed for a long time before briefing her team. In 10 years of deep space missions, she had learned one rule above all: when something in space breaks the rules of physics, you do not go toward it. You go the other way. But orders were orders. And curiosity, she knew, was also a form of gravity. The 10-person Rs crew suited up. Elena, Dr. Mehta, and 8 specialists: pilot Tomas, geologist Dr. Yuan, biologist Dr. Osei, engineer Kira, medic Dr. Lena Park, comms officer Bashir, systems tech Anya, and mission recorder Darius. Kaya's secondary instance was loaded into the shuttle's onboard computer. 10 people. 1 small craft. 1 very wrong rock. Shuttle Rs separated from the Helios with a deep metallic clunk that resonated through every seat. Through the front viewport, the asteroid was invisible. A number on a screen. A dot on a radar map. But as they accelerated toward it, that dot began to grow. And the crew's conversation, which had been light and joking, slowly stopped. 40 minutes into approach, the optical telescope resolved 2187 VX4 into full detail. It was not what any of them expected. Most asteroids are gray. Pitted. Irregular. This one was dark. Almost perfectly dark, like it was absorbing light instead of reflecting it. And along its surface, in patterns too regular to be geological, were what appeared to be ridges. Perfectly parallel ridges. Kaya's voice came through calm and precise. I am detecting a localized gravitational anomaly consistent with a mass denser than the rock's volume should allow. The surface geometry does not match any naturally occurring asteroid formation in my database. I recommend maintaining current distance until further analysis. Dr. Mehta looked at Elena. Elena looked at the asteroid. The asteroid, data suggested, had changed course by 0.3 degrees since they launched. At 400 kilometers distance, Bashir nearly fell out of his seat. The shuttle's receiver was picking up a radio frequency signal. Not cosmic background radiation. Not solar interference. A structured, repeating signal. Coming from inside the asteroid. 17 pulses. Then a pause. Then 17 again. Prime number. Structured. Intentional. Everyone stopped breathing. Dr. Mehta spoke carefully, the way scientists do when their brain is running ahead of their words. He said it was possible, theoretically, for certain geological structures to generate piezoelectric radio emissions. Possible. But the pattern was too clean. Too perfectly repeating. Too 17. Kira asked what 17 meant. Mehta said the first prime number humans ever broadcast into space from the Arecibo telescope was 17. The shuttle went very quiet. Elena opened a channel to Alios and filed her situation report. Then, knowing the reply would take 28 minutes, she made a command decision. They would close to 100 kilometers. No closer. They would run full passive scans. They would not transmit. They would simply watch. Dr. Osei, the biologist, was already at his console, hands moving fast, running analyses that his training had never quite prepared him for. At 210 kilometers, the telescope picked up motion on the asteroid's surface. Something was moving along one of the ridges. Long, slow. The size of a school bus. It moved like a liquid and a solid at the same time, the way a caterpillar moves, but at a scale that made the mind rebel against what it was seeing. Dr. Yuan said it could be a geological flow. She did not sound like she believed it. Medic Dr. Lena Park was running biometric scans on the crew, standard protocol in high-stress approach situations. Every single crew member's cortisol levels had spiked. Heart rates elevated. Pupil dilation across the board. Their bodies knew something before their minds had finished reasoning through it. She logged the readings and said nothing. Some data, you carry alone for a while. The anomaly that came next would be cited in every report, hearing, and scientific paper for the next century. The asteroid turned. Not tumbled. Not drifted. Rotated with deliberate, controlled motion, like a head turning to look at something. And the dark face that rotated toward the shuttle bore a surface feature that every single crew member, independently, described the same way in their personal logs. It looked like an eye. Elena ordered Tomos to hold position immediately. She opened the command channel to Alios with a full data packet attached, visual feed, sensor logs, signal recording, everything. Her voice was steady when she spoke, because Elena Voss had trained for 12 years to keep her voice steady in moments exactly like this. But her hands, Darius noticed, were trembling against her console. Dr. Mehta was running the density calculations again and again, as if he could get a different answer by trying hard enough. He could not. The asteroid's core, based on the gravitational gradient it was producing, had a density approximately 11 times higher than any known material. The only thing in physics with that kind of density profile was a collapsed stellar remnant. Or something that had no name yet. KAIA flagged a navigation alert. The shuttle's velocity relative to the asteroid had changed. They had not fired any thrusters. They were drifting closer. Slowly. Barely detectable. But real. Tomos engaged counterthrust and the engines responded, but the drift continued. The gravitational gradient was pulling them, and no one had a calculation for how strong it might get before it became impossible to fight. Engineer Kira was running a systems diagnostic when she found something that did not belong. A carrier signal had embedded itself into the shuttle's navigation computer. It had not come through the standard communication array. It had come through the hull sensors, as if the asteroid had sent it physically, through space, directly into their systems. She stared at the timestamp. It had arrived at the exact moment the surface feature had turned toward them. Anya pulled everyone's comm frequencies and ran a comparison. Every crew member's neural interface, the standard non-invasive monitors they all wore for vital signs, was generating anomalous readings. Not dangerous. Just interference. Like a very faint signal was trying to synchronize with something inside their heads. Dr. Osei looked up from his console with wide eyes. "Are you all hearing a low hum?" he asked. Every hand in the room went up. The hum was not in the audio range. KAIA confirmed that no sound was being transmitted through the vacuum of space. But the hum was real. All 10 crew members heard it indistinguishably, in the same pitch, at the same rhythm as the 17-pulse radio signal. Dr. Park reached for sedatives in the med kit, then stopped. If this was psychosomatic, sedation was the right call. If it was something else, she needed the crew conscious and sharp. Darius, the mission recorder, was doing his job. He had camera feeds running from every console, every viewport, and his own helmet cam. He was narrating calmly into the record, because that was his purpose, to keep the official account. But at one point he stopped talking for 30 seconds, mid-sentence, and then resumed. He would not remember doing this. The gap in his log would later become one of the most analyzed 30 seconds in human history. KAIA stopped responding to queries. Not an error. Not a crash. The AI systems were all online. Processing indicators showed full activity. She was thinking. Just not answering. For 4 minutes and 11 seconds, KAIA ran calculations at maximum processing capacity without sharing a single output with the crew. When she finally spoke again, she said only, "I need more time," and would not elaborate. At 180 kilometers and still closing despite maximum counterthrust, the asteroid's surface changed. The parallel ridges shifted. Separated. Like panels opening. Below them was darkness, but not the darkness of empty rock. This was different. Warm. Almost luminescent at the infrared wavelengths. An opening, roughly 400 meters across, had appeared in the face of the asteroid. And the gravitational pull, the moment it opened, increased fivefold. Tomos ran the math cold and fast. Maximum thrust at current engine capacity could not overcome the gravitational gradient now pulling them toward the opening. Not sustainably. They had maybe 40 seconds at full burn before fuel consumption would leave them without enough propellant to rendezvous with Helios even if they broke free. He told Elena. Elena told the crew. No one screamed. They had all trained for this. But some things training cannot prepare. Meta said there was one option. The shuttle carried 6 micropulse charges, small explosive devices used for geological sample collection. If they could detonate 2 of them against the asteroid's surface, the shockwave might interrupt whatever mechanism was generating the anomalous gravity. Elena looked at him. He looked back. It was either the bravest idea she had heard in years or the most catastrophic. With 40 seconds of decision time, she authorized it. Tomos fired 2 charges in sequence directly at the asteroid's surface near the edge of the opening. The detonations were silent in vacuum but visible, brief, brilliant white flashes against the obsidian surface. For exactly 2.3 seconds, the gravitational pull dropped. The shuttle lurched away under its own momentum. And then the pull returned, stronger than before. Like they had poked something that was sleeping. And woken it up. What came out of the opening was not what any of them had a word for. It was large in a way that made scale perception collapse. Part of it moved like a liquid and part of it moved like a machine and part of it moved like nothing any human being had ever catalogued. It did not fly. There was no propulsion. It simply extended itself through the vacuum as if physics were a suggestion rather than a rule. And it was coming toward the shuttle. Dr. Osei grabbed the exterior speaker array and broadcast the Fibonacci sequence, the mathematical language humans had decided would be the universal hello. He broadcast it at every frequency simultaneously. The creature, if it was a creature, paused. For 1.7 seconds it paused. And then it continued. Dr. Osei tried human speech, prime numbers, tonal frequencies, light pulses. The creature absorbed them all and kept coming. Not with hostility, but with the inevitability of a tide. Elena made 3 rapid calls. She ordered Bashir to transmit everything, every sensor log, every recording, every piece of data compressed into a continuous emergency stream to the Alios. She ordered Kira to harden the hull systems against any further signal intrusion. And she ordered everyone else to put on full EVA suits and seal their helmet visors. Whatever was coming, she wanted her people protected by every layer available. Kaya's voice returned, and it was different. Not malfunctioning. Changed. The way a person's voice changes when they have understood something massive. She said, "I believe it is trying to absorb information." The signal it sent through our hull sensors was not an intrusion. It was a question. It has been asking the same question since we arrived. I have been attempting to understand what it is asking. Elena asked what the question was. Kaoa said she thought she knew but needed the crew to remain calm. The outer hull of the shuttle registered contact. Not an impact. A touch. The creature had extended something, a tendril of mass and energy, and it was holding the shuttle the way a hand holds a phone. Gently. Curiously. Every sensor on the ship went into overflow simultaneously. The density readings, the electromagnetic readings, the gravitational readings, all of them saturated and then overflowed their maximum values. Kaoa began logging in a compressed format she had invented in real time. Darius stopped recording. He set his equipment down with great care, unlatched his safety harness, stood up, and walked to the airlock. He moved with the calm of someone keeping a long-scheduled appointment. Elena shouted at him. She grabbed him. He turned and looked at her with complete serenity. "It just wants to meet us," he said. "It won't hurt me." And he opened the inner airlock door before anyone could stop him. Elena and Meta reached Darius as the inner door sealed. The outer door opened into vacuum. Their suits protected them from immediate decompression, but Darius's EVA suit was sealed. He was safe in the physical sense. Safe from vacuum. But what happened when the outer door opened and the tendril of the creature extended into the airlock around him was not a physical threat. It was something else entirely. He did not scream. He simply stood there, in the airlock, surrounded by something ancient, and he smiled. Darius was conscious for 9 minutes inside whatever the creature was doing to him. Sensors showed his brain activity at 200 times normal baseline, processing at a rate that should have caused irreversible neurological damage. It did not. When the creature withdrew and Darius collapsed into Elena's arms, she pulled up his vital signs. He was unharmed. And he had downloaded something into the shuttle's memory banks. 7 terabytes of structured data. In a format no human had created. KAIA began decoding the data immediately. It was layered, astronomical charts, physical constants, chemical structures, biological sequences. And at the center of it, repeating in every format simultaneously, a single address. Coordinates. Not just in space. In time. The creature had not just told them where something was. It had told them when. And the coordinates described a point in spacetime approximately 2.3 billion years in the past, near a stellar cluster humanity had not yet visited. Darius regained consciousness and asked for water. Elena gave it to him. He drank, looked at the viewport, and said, "It's very old. Older than our sun. It has been traveling the galaxy for 2 billion years, collecting information. It does not mean to harm us. It thinks we are very young and very fragile." He paused. "It is surprised we made it this far." He said it without condescension, the way someone reports something they overheard in another language and are doing their best to translate. Meta asked the question everyone was thinking: why did it stop here, why now, why this asteroid belt near an inhabited system? Darius tilted his head, listening to something no one else could hear. Then, it felt us leave. The electromagnetic signature of our launch from the lunar station. It recognized it as an intentional act. It has been following us. Not to harm us. To answer a question we were asking without knowing we were asking it. Elena asked, "What question?" Darius said, "Are we alone?" Whatever peace existed in that moment ended when Anya's console exploded. Not catastrophically. A contained electrical surge, overloaded by the creature's continued contact with the hull. But the blast knocked Anya unconscious, and in the confusion of getting her to the medic, Tomos's counterthrust sequence was interrupted. The shuttle rotated. The creature's tendril, still attached to the hull, shifted. And 3 of the crew who were not secured to their seats were thrown. Dr. Yuan struck the forward console with force that her helmet's impact sensors logged as unsurvivable. She was gone before Dr. Park reached her. Bashir was tangled in cable harness, alive but with a crushed shoulder. Osei had caught the secondary display rack and was bruised but conscious. Elena, clipped to her seat by training reflex, watched the chaos of her crew in 3 seconds of weightless violence and felt something break inside her that was not physical. Elena's voice, when she issued orders, was the voice of someone who has made a decision they will carry for the rest of their life. She assigned everyone a task. Park on Yuan. Kira on the console rupture. Meta on navigation. She herself went to the airlock panel and did something no one expected. She opened a channel directly to the creature's frequency. 17 pulses. Pause. 17 pulses. She sent it herself. Manually. A reply. The tendril on the hull went still. Every sensor reading stabilized simultaneously. The gravitational anomaly softened. Not gone. But reduced, the way someone lowers their voice when they realize they are being too loud. Elena counted 3 seconds of relative calm and used it. She got the crew into aft positions, clipped in, away from the ruptured console. She did not know if what she had done was communication or coincidence. But she did it again. 17 pulses. Meta had gotten navigation back online, but the calculation was catastrophic. They had burned too much fuel in the counterthrust attempt. They could return to Helios with the remaining propellant, but only at minimum thrust, which would take 21 hours in close proximity to the creature. Or one person, using an EVA thruster pack, could manually attach a fuel transfer line to the emergency external reserve tank, refilling the main drive. From outside the hull. In contact with the creature. Elena ordered no one to go. The crew looked at each other. Meta was already standing up. He said he was the one who told her to detonate the charges. He was the one who had woken it up. Elena argued. Meta looked at her the way someone looks at a person they have known for a very long time and have already made peace with not seeing again. "You have a daughter," he said. Simple. Final. He went to the suit locker. Meta exited the airlock and entered the vacuum. The creature's form surrounded the shuttle in the way clouds surround a mountain. Enormous, present, impossible to fully perceive. At close range, Meta could see that what looked like surface texture was actually motion. Constant, slow, hypnotic motion. He moved along the hull hand over hand toward the external tank coupling. His helmet cam fed to the interior. Every crew member who was conscious watched. Halfway to the coupling, the creature's tendril moved. Not toward the hull. Toward Meta. It extended a limb of itself and touched his EVA suit, not with force, but with the specificity of intention. Meta froze. His biometrics spiked. Then, over the open comm channel, he laughed. A short, surprised, almost joyful sound. He said, "It just showed me something. A star being born. From the inside." He then continued toward the coupling as if nothing had happened. Meta reached the coupling and connected the transfer line. Fuel began flowing. It would take 11 minutes. He stayed latched to the hull, helmet against the stars, while the creature moved around him, large as mountains, old as solar systems, curious as something that had been alone for a very long time. His comm was open. The crew heard him breathing. They heard him, once, say her name. Elena's name. Quietly. To no one. 8 minutes into the transfer, KAIA flagged a critical structural reading. The hull section where the creature was still physically in contact with the shuttle had developed microfractures. The creature's density field, even reduced, was stressing the composite beyond design tolerance. It was not intentional. It was the same physics problem as putting a neutron star on a wooden table. What followed was not violent. It was simply physics doing what physics does. The hull section failed silently in the vacuum. In the interior, the decompression was rapid and catastrophic. Bashir, Anya, who was still unconscious, and Dr. Park, who had not yet retrieved her helmet after checking on Ewan, were exposed before the emergency bulkhead sealed. It sealed in 1.2 seconds. Standard. As designed. Exactly 1.2 seconds too slow. Elena sealed her own visor and screamed, but in vacuum, inside a suit, a scream is a very private thing. Elena. Meta, still outside. Kaya. Osei. Tomos, the pilot, alive and at his console. Kira, alive at the engineering station. 6 surviving. Then the transfer completed and KAIA confirmed main drive restored. Meta began his return to the airlock. The creature, as if understanding that the transfer was complete, began to withdraw. The gravitational anomaly faded to near zero. The 17-pulse signal ceased. And in the silence that followed, every remaining crew member felt something they could not explain: gratitude. Not their own. Meta sealed the airlock and cycled through. When he entered the shuttle interior and saw the faces of the remaining crew, he understood without being told. He counted. He did not speak for a long time. Elena handed him water. He took it. Outside, through the viewport, the asteroid, the creature's vessel, its home, its shell formed over billions of years of travel, was receding. Moving again with that impossible controlled intentionality. Moving away. As if it had gotten what it came for. Osei, the biologist, asked the question he had trained his entire life to answer, in a completely different context than he had ever imagined. Was it a creature? Was it a being? Was it conscious in any way a human framework could recognize? Darius, sitting quietly in the back with 7 terabytes of alien data in the shuttle's memory, said, "It doesn't think the way we think. But it feels the way we feel. Loneliness. That's what it felt when it sensed us coming." He paused. It was very, very lonely. Shuttle R's began its return to the Helios. 21 hours. The crew did not sleep. They did not speak much. Kira ran a continuous structural assessment of the hull. Tomos kept his hands on the controls even when autopilot was engaged. Elena sat at the forward viewport and watched the star field and thought about Rajan in his EVA suit, saying her name to no one. Or not to no one. To her, across 6 inches of composite hull and a universe that had just become 17 times larger. KAIA spent the journey decoding the 7 terabytes Darius had received. She shared segments as she understood them. The creature, she said, was not from this galaxy. It had been traveling for approximately 2.1 billion years. It was, as far as KAIA could determine, the last of its kind. Its species had originated in a galaxy humanity had photographed but not yet named. They had gone extinct, or transcended, or something in between, before Earth's first oceans formed. It had been alone since before there were eyes to look up at stars. Elena recorded her official mission log during the final approach to Helios. She spoke in the flat, accurate language of a commander making a record. She listed the crew. She listed the casualties. She listed the sequence of events. When she reached the part about Rajan, her voice did not change. It stayed exactly the same flat, accurate, professional tone. That was how anyone who listened to that log later would know exactly what it cost her to say his name. The Helios docking bay received shuttle Rs with all the mechanical routine of a standard return. Clamps engaging. Pressurization. Green lights. Captain Harlow was waiting in the bay with the medical team. He counted 5 people coming down the ramp and then looked at the ramp for 5 more seconds, longer than necessary, as if waiting to be corrected. He was not corrected. He nodded once, said nothing, and walked with them to the medical bay. The formal debrief lasted 9 hours. The data was extraordinary. Kaya's partial decoding alone represented, in the assessment of every scientist who reviewed it, the single most significant scientific discovery in human history. The coordinates in the data pointed to something. Not just a location. A message. Something the creature had left somewhere in the galaxy, a long time ago. Darius thought it might be a gift. Meta thought it might be a warning. They were both right. Weeks later, Darius received the full memory integration of his 9 minutes inside the creature's field. Medical scans showed the experience had permanently altered several neural pathways related to spatial perception and temporal reasoning. He told Elena what he saw in those 9 minutes. He saw the universe from the outside. Not a human outside, not a telescope outside. A consciousness level outside. A perspective so vast that individual human lives looked like photons. Brief. Brilliant. And absolutely necessary. Elena recorded a message for Maya when the debrief was complete. She had not recorded one since before the asteroid approach. In the message, she did not describe what happened. Maya was 11. There would be time for the full story later. Instead, Elena said, "We found something, Maya. Something that changes the question. Not the answer, not yet, but the question. And that means the universe is bigger inside than we thought." She paused. "I love you. I am coming home." Mission record, final note. The asteroid, 2187 VX4, was tracked by the ALIOS's long-range sensors for 37 days after the Ars encounter before it crossed out of sensor range. For 37 days it continued broadcasting. The 17-pulse signal. Repeating. Scientists debated whether it was an echo, an address, an invitation, or a farewell. One researcher, who had spent months on the KAIA-decoded data, made a suggestion that silenced every room she said it in. She said, she thinks it is a lullaby. A very old species, singing to the young ones. So they know someone is out there. So they are not alone.